welcome to the newest episode of Growth Quest Podcast. I just got a shout out in the live chat from a New York City subway, MTA going your way. I like that, right? That's from my wife, actually. Today's episode is going to be about single mothers and raising boys. Single mothers raising boys. And I'm going to make this a series for you guys that tend to listen to the podcast. And today we're going to go over numero uno, dealing with emotions, teaching your son what each different emotion means, allowing them to figure out how to get through it, and guiding them if necessary. Then we're going to hit on the topic of social emotional learning from home before they are taught social emotional learning in the school system, focusing and dealing on each situation that is encountered in a very measured and realistic way, meaning when they encounter hardships, dealing with relationships in a realistic way, and finally how to practice conflict management. And we'll go deeper into each topic as this series goes on. And my wife said from the live chat, single mothers be having to carry baby strollers up the stairs in New York City because the elevators never work. Which I totally agree with. I hear you out there. So getting into it, I want to hit on the definition of what Stoicism is, and we're going to talk about why you should teach your sons Stoicism, right? So the definition, according to Google, and I'm not really savvy on Google definitions, I prefer Webster's, but we're going to go off of Google today. The endurance of pain or hardship without the display of feelings and without complaint. All right, now I only agree with part of that when it comes to Stoicism. Enduring hardships without complaint. We all need somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of and people to vent to, right? But I'm going to go even further when it says without the display of feelings. And I'm going to say without the display of an emotional outburst. And I stumbled upon a video that I really, really like, and I want to play part of that video for you guys. For those who are going to be watching on YouTube, I'm going to cut out this portion. I'm going to edit this portion out and have the actual video up for display for your visual purposes. But the rest of you guys who are listening in through Spotify or Anchor, you're going to hear the video. And then we're going to go further after this. And to give you a bit background before I start talking about it, the guy's name is Jayson Wilson, and he is a sensei at a dojo. Now listen to this exchange between him and a young man.
Get them hands up. Now I'm gonna go 1, 2. Come on, get here, stop retreating. Where you going? Come here. Stay behind him. Yes. So you gotta get past all of that. Okay? Good job.
As I began to work with the other boys, I noticed that Colby was crying, so I came back to him to see why he was crying.
Be honest with me. You don't know. You're overcoming fear. Okay? You're overcoming self-doubt. It's okay, cry. You can cry. Okay? All of you are doing that. Okay, listen. You cry, you can cry. Okay? Cry. That's how you heal yourself. All of you have self-doubt here. All of you, the reason you wouldn't flow is because you don't let it out. Okay? He's scared to death to defend himself because of the lies Satan has told him. Stand right there. Every last one of you in this group has the same issue. In his fear, his self-doubt, he beats himself up. I go through the same thing. But that's why I say this place is safe to cry. It's safe to be Superman, because I will not break your spirit. I will break your will.
All right. If you didn't hear it, or if you, let's start with if you didn't see what was going on. He was going through some of the drills with the young man, and he was scared to get hit. He was showing him how to do look like home blocks, a specific type of block, and the young guy was scared to get hit in the video, and he had another young man out of the dojo come and stand behind him so that he would stop being scared and stop retreating from the oncoming punches. And he did pretty well when he had the other young man standing behind him. After the drill was over, the kid started to cry. And the sensei, Jayson Wilson, approached him again and said, "Hey, why are you crying?" Kid said, "I don't know." So the number one thing that I had already started to talk about is teaching your kids how to deal with the emotions and teaching them what each emotion that they're feeling is. And that's exactly what the sensei started by doing. He said, very specifically, right now, what you're doing is overcoming fear and you're overcoming self-doubt, and that it is a-okay for you to cry. I deal with self-doubt all the time, and I deal with fear all the time. One of the biggest things that I've dealt with recently was me starting this podcast up. And I'm like, oh man, I don't have all of the stuff in the background to make it look cool. I don't have like an amazing camera right now. Like, is anybody going to, is not visually appealing. Is anybody going to tune in to really listen to what I have to say? But I had to overcome that. I had to say, this is a message that people need to hear. So people are going to hear it, whether the background is visually stimulating or not. Because it's an important message. Teaching your young men how to appropriately deal with their emotions. They have this concept nowadays that people talk about, which is toxic masculinity. And for those people who just showed up in the live, thank you for coming in. You can always support by just throwing some likes out there. And if you have any ideas that you would like to say, just say it right there in the chat. It's all welcome. But they have this idea out of toxic masculinity, and you do see a lot of males who have negative outbursts. And how many men nowadays have been raised by single moms? And one of the biggest things that I see when it comes to females is when they get into an emotional moment, right? The way they deal with it is through an outburst. You cannot do that in front of your son. You cannot show your son that it's okay when you get angry to start yelling. It's okay when you get angry to start throwing things. It's okay when you get angry to play the blame game. It's okay when you get angry to do whatever is the first thought that comes to your mind, because that is not how men are supposed to deal with themselves in society. You have to teach your boys, one, how to grow up to be leaders, and you cannot grow up to be a leader unless you know how to approach a hardship in a very thoughtful, measured, and charismatic way. And it starts by when you see them dealing or having an emotional outbreak, or throwing a hissy fit or a temper tantrum, first correct it Once the situation is corrected, hey, I saw that you were very upset at that point in time. This is what you were feeling. It's okay to feel that way, but this is how we're going to deal with it later. And when you see them dealing with a similar situation, that's the time that you can take to actually praise the fact that they dealt with it accordingly and in a good manner. All right. You can teach them how to deal with situations. And I'll give you an example. If you have two kids in a room playing and one has a stormtrooper and the other one doesn't have a stormtrooper, so the one that doesn't have the stormtrooper goes and takes the stormtrooper from the child that originally did have it. One child throws a temper tantrum and starts crying on the floor. The other one victoriously starts to play with the stormtrooper. So how do you deal with that? First off, that's going into conflict management. You're teaching them how to share, but you don't teach them, you don't cry because you're a boy. You don't teach them how to bottle those emotions up. You teach them how to say, hey, I see you're playing with the toy. Do you mind if I play with that toy with you? You do this, I'll get this toy. We can have a whole Star Wars battle with different toys, but we all get to play with that toy at some point in time. And when you see that situation come up again, because it will inevitably come up again when kids are playing, if your child reacts the right way, you reward it. You praise them for them reacting the correct way. All right. Now let's hit on social emotional learning from home before they ever get to do it in school, because they do it in school all of the time. Right. Now here goes 10 different ways you can do it from home. The first thing is you have to take care of yourself as the parent. If you're not taking care of yourself, you become emotionally distraught. You go through what I've been through before, which is decision fatigue, right? Where you just don't even feel like thinking anymore. You just want to go away and sit down and hide. And you're not necessarily present in that moment of your child's life. And there's a saying that I've heard that your presence does not mean that you're present. You can be emotionally checked out. You can be mentally checked out. You can be spiritually checked out. Or you could be physically checked out. Or you could be all of them all together. So in order to avoid that, you have to figure out what your stress relief is. You got to figure out when you're going to take the time out for yourself in order to get yourself back together so that you can be present for them in that moment, right? And that goes into point number 2 on that, establishing routines and establishing those routines with intention. And what do I mean by that? The biggest thing that I dealt with when I first got my son, and it was just me and my son before I got remarried, was I had to go to work. I had to learn a brand new job that I had just gotten. I had to then get off of that job, go pick him up from his after school program, bring him home, make sure dinner was cooked. By that time, it's about 7 o'clock, 7:30 at night. Now I gotta help him with the schoolwork, and I'm just exhausted. I don't feel like doing anything more after that because he's a boy, so it's hard for him to get, even though he had a long day in school, but it's hard for him still to kind of calm down and focus in on the little bitty morsels of homework that the kindergarten teacher was sitting home. So now I'm frustrated at that. I'm like, yo, let's sit down and do your homework. It got a lot better once I was able to really establish a routine. What I ended up doing was I ended up putting him into karate, which further was able to get his energy out. So I would go to work, I would come home, I would immediately have everything, his snacks and stuff planned out as to what he's going to eat. He would eat those snacks. We would go back out the door. He would go to karate. We would come back home. He would complete his homework. And by that time, I had already had the dinner that he was going to eat planned out. So he would then eat the dinner. He would shower. He would be in bed. And he would be sleeping. Now, on to that routine, I added on his clothes was already laid out for the days prior. I already knew what I was going to wear because I wear a uniform to my job. But it established a routine that he already knew what to expect day in and day out. And it kept my mental state a lot more clear because I didn't have to make as many decisions back to back to back to back to back to back to back over and over. And that allowed me to be a lot more present in his life in a mental capacity, in a physical capacity, etc. Now, the next would be to actually commit acts of kindness and service. You can do this in a plethora of different ways. My wife isn't alive. Do you remember when I said, when you guys first moved down to Virginia, and I said, the first thing we got to do is figure out what we're going to do with our eldest, right? She can volunteer in museums. She can volunteer at food banks. She can volunteer at shelters. But we have to show her ways to give back to the community and get her really involved. And the reason why I said that is because it creates a way for them to be appreciative of where they're at in life. You might not have everything together. None of us have everything together. I definitely don't have everything together. But there are people out there that are, unfortunately, their situations are a lot well off than you, or a lot worse off than your situation. And they get to see that. And they get to experience actually helping other people. So they get to start to develop an awareness of just being kind-hearted as opposed to being the opposite. You know, it teaches them a sense of responsibility for those around them. It teaches them how to take care of those who are around them. So you have appreciation, responsibility, and a way to just completely demonstrate kindness for others. And it also helps with your mental health because you're doing right for other people. My ex is really good at the fifth point, engaging in creativity. She's really good at taking my son and doing artwork with him and like all of that other stuff. Me, the way we do it is through workouts, through practicing his karate. He does get homework from karate class, and a lot of times it tugs on his imagination, and he has to use his imagination and figure out how to express himself through the karate sheets. We will go through that stuff together all the time. And that is very important because, one, it brings you to that moment when you're doing it together, when you're doing projects, right? Another thing I do with the kids is I always cook with them, make different types of drinks and stuff like that when the holidays come up. Send it on over when you get the chance. It doesn't have to just be art projects, writing poems, teaching them how to mend their clothes when it gets holes and stuff in it, just like forgotten arts. Come up with anything. We all have cameras now. Make a movie with the child. Hey, we're gonna make an action movie today. You're gonna be the superhero, and hide around the house and set up the cameras in different angles and let them really act as a superhero. It gets to their imagination. They learn how to express themselves in different ways when you're actually sitting down and engaging in creative acts with one another. And you get to see just how they think. Point number six, celebrate what you can, right? So you start off with the small things and make them appreciative of the small things before you ever move to the big things. I failed to do this with my son. His first Christmas was like 2,000 something dollars deep, man. Uh, crazy amount of money spent. And I didn't want to do it that way, but I was kind of overruled and it happened anyway. And this is something I wish I would have done with him, is to teach him how to celebrate his good health. Celebrate the fact that the sun came up. How are we going to celebrate that we have a nice sunny day? Let's go to the park. Let's go get ice cream after the park. It's a nice sunny day. We're happy that the sun is out and the sun is shining. And then as the rest of the other things coming, he has even more of an appreciation for it, because now he's like, oh, I get something else. And this one is even bigger and grander. And it also teaches them how to develop resilience when negative things happen. All right. Number 7. And I'm kind of rushing through it because remember I said that this is going to be a series and we're going to dive deeper into each point as the series goes on. Practice active listening. Of course, be smart about it. Every child deserves correction. Every son deserves correction. So when you tell them that, hey, you need to get off your butt and go do something, that's exactly what they need to do. If they don't like it in the moment, they don't like it in the moment. But when they come back, and if they want to discuss it, go ahead and discuss it with them and really hear what they have to say. And if you need to change in that moment, then go on ahead and change in that moment. But if you feel within yourself that you need to stick by your guns, stick by your guns. But validate and acknowledge that you know how they feel about it. Don't just let them walk away feeling like you just brushed them off. Acknowledge their fears, acknowledge their concerns, just like the sensei did in the video. He said, we all deal with this. I deal with it myself. But while you're here, this is my expectation for you. I won't break you, but I will break your stubbornness. You have to be coachable. You have to be willing to be coached. And that's what a lot of men are missing nowadays. Everybody thinks they know everything. I'm sorry, ladies, but that is something that y'all do. Y'all think y'all know everything. We've got to, as men, we look at our spouses and go, all right, I'll let you go walk away and do that. And then when it goes wrong, we just sit back and look at y'all and say, well, I told you so. I mean, am I right? To my wife that's in the chat, that stubbornness has to be broken in our boys, right? And we have to show them how to be moldable, how to be coachable, because there's a whole lot to learn. She gave me an angry face in the chat. There's a whole lot in this world that needs to be learned. It needs to be absorbed. Point number 8, and there's 2 more. Help your child express and name the emotions that they're going through. Again, just like you saw the sensei, and I'm so happy that that video is on the internet, because he told them exactly what they felt. You're scared. You're scared to get hit. You don't think you'll be able to hit back hard enough, fast enough. It's time to overcome it. Stop doubting yourself. Let them know exactly what they are feeling in the moment and guide them on ways to overcome it. And number 9, right? Practice social emotional learning daily. Of course, everything that we just went over. Making habits. Things like that. And my wife is right. Men teach kids confidence. We do teach kids confidence. We're a lot more uh, adventurous than women tend to be, right? She said that men teach kids confidence, women teach kids caution. We're a lot more adventurous. 9 times out of 10, if you see somebody jumping out of a plane, it's going to be a dude. 9 times out of 10, if you see somebody working on some type of heavy machinery that can get your fingers and toes and extremities snatched off, it's going to be a man, right? My grandmother used to teach me, my maternal grandmother used to always say, watch your head. But it's because I was just out, like, whatever. I get on the banister in New York City buildings, man, multiple stairs, right? The banister, just slide down the banister. Because I was just a daring kid. I could have fell from 4 floors up, straight through the middle of the stairs, cracked everything. There wasn't no men telling me don't do that. Oh, that boy just having fun, leave him alone. So my wife is completely correct. But with every, well, how did you say it? Yes, she said, "Oh my God, you're still like that." Uh, Risk taking. That's what she was talking about last night. The bigger the risk, unfortunately, the bigger the reward. But there's also comes with the bigger the risk, the bigger the loss. But it's okay to teach your sons how to be risk takers, because some of the most successful people in this world are risk takers. Look at the owner of Amazon. He took a risk by opening up a bookstore in some rinky-dink location, just like I'm doing this whole podcast in a location where the backdrop isn't the most beautiful backdrop. But look at everything that he has now, that he's gathered now. But getting back to it, practice social emotional learning daily. So, of course, building those habits. Um, you could start very, very small when talking about habit building. Brushing teeth. We got our youngest daughter excited about brushing her teeth. She didn't want to put the toothbrush down. Remember? And yes, my wife said very calculated risk. So that's what you're teaching them, calculated risk. And that's part of what I said. Just make sure everything that they're doing and decisions that they're making is measured decisions. And a good way to do it is to sit them down and say, hey, if you decide to do this, what could be the outcome? And let them list the outcomes out. But if you decide to do this, another thing, what's the outcome of that? So what do you think is a better decision for you to make? Best way to do it. They get in trouble, right? And you tell them, especially if you're a parent that believes in spankings, this will definitely work. If you wash the dishes like I told you to wash the dishes is my favorite example. What happens? Oh, nothing, or I get this, or blah blah blah, like ice cream after dinner. Okay, but you didn't wash the dishes. So what happened last time you didn't wash the dishes? And it'll start to click. Hopefully. But you do have to break that stubbornness. That's your main job. Breaking the stubbornness, teaching them conflict management, and all that other stuff. We're going to get into all of that, especially during the next episode. This is just to tell you what to expect in going over the main topics. Number 10, transition mindfully. During times of stress and anxiety, it's easy to get pulled in by negative thoughts, negative emotions, and it's kind of hard, as I said notice how all of this comes full circle. It's hard to stay present in the moment. Transitions are extremely tough for children. Divorces, which I have one under my belt, not trying to get another one at all. Moving, You got to take them out of school and move to a whole new area and put them in a whole new school. Now they have to go and meet new children. They don't know if they're going to be accepted or fit in. Things like that, you know. So you have to teach your kids that these are challenges they could wind up facing, in ways to kind of coach themselves out of it, the same ways adults coach themselves out of it. 4-count breathing, stretching. There's one thing I did when I was talking to my therapist, you know, kind of like feeling your toes in the boots. And this is getting into anxiety built around those transitions. Feeling my toes in my shoes so that I can bring myself back into the moment. Okay, this is where I am right now. And I can refocus in on what's going on. Right? And this is the last point is transitions. So as we move further into this series, this has been 51 minutes. I didn't expect that. But that's why this one is going to be a series, because this is a very important one. We need to start bringing back real, true men into society. And there's so many single mothers now, and moms are not sure at all on how to really get their sons to have positive emotions, especially when it's so easy for women to just lash out in their emotions. You start feeling some kind of way, there's nothing to stop you. Y'all turn into... That's why I'm mad at Disney for making Beauty and the Beast. I feel like, who was it? Was it Belle? Was her name Belle? I feel like Belle should have been the Beast, and it should have been the opposite way. The prince was trying to tame the beast. But yeah, you can be a huge, huge support to this podcast by liking, hitting the like button if you're watching on YouTube, subscribing if you're watching on YouTube, and also subscribing if you're just listening to it on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcast or many other platforms I'm on. If you are watching it on live in TikTok, of course, giving likes, you can do the gifts. It'll get me to it'll give me the ability to reach a lot more people with messages like this. Also, follow. When you see I go live, more than likely I'm going live for the podcast, or to just sometimes just a chit chat, but not oftentimes just a chit chat. Share the live with people that you think need to hear messages such as this. My wife said the beast was the beast was texting another chick and Belle snapped. That's the way she would transform into the beast, right? So yes, again, thank you for having the patience to sit through all of this. This is Growth Quest Podcast, because together we're gonna get some goddamn growing done. That's just, I don't have a good motto yet. If you have a motto, I'll give you a good shout out if you help me come up with a motto. All right. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Gary Shamel out.